Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And you know what day it is, right? Right? Yeah, that's right. It's Friday. It's the day that I should be answering your questions. Yeah, I said should be. And do you know why I won't be? Well, because you did not send me any questions. And yes, I realized that that last part wasn't actually a proper sentence. I just wanted to throw an extra B in there. But yeah, you didn't send me any questions this week. So I've got no questions. So I'll just, do what I do when I don't have questions and talk about whatever I want to talk about, which is basically what I do anyway. But I do enjoy answering your questions, and you can send those over using the anonymous contact form. It's anonymous if you want it to be anonymous. ama.fppradio.com. And the reason I say it's anonymous if you want it to be anonymous is because while the form does ask for a name, it doesn't have to be your name. It doesn't even have to be a real name. And it does ask for an email address, but again, it doesn't have to be your email address. It doesn't even have to be an actual email address, just something that looks like an email address that will wind up not, kicking back of, that's not an email address. So if you put you at u.u, well, hopefully the system will realize, oh, well, it's got all the things that look like an email address. So there you go. So send me some questions, and I will answer them next Friday, ama.fppradio.com. So you're probably thinking to yourself, Darryl, since you don't have any questions, what are you going to talk about? Well, I'm glad you asked. See what I did there? Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. Let's talk about confidence and perfectionism. Now, you might think that these two things don't necessarily wind up going together. And on the surface, maybe they don't. But once you sort of dig a little deeper, I think maybe they do go together a little bit more than people realize. Now, let's start with the article about perfectionism. Both of these from the same author, from the same website, both from Leon Ho at lifehack.org. Headline, How Perfectionism Secretly Screws You Up. Yeah, that's right. Perfectionism secretly screws you up. While perfectionism is commonly seen as believing you want to be perfect, or perhaps the obsession of wanting something to be exactly right, being a perfectionist can manifest in other subtle ways. Having to check something more than one time. You procrastinate with the thought that it's just not the perfect time to start doing something. And perfectionists are oftentimes the first person to spot a mistake. It actually reflects more than we think and can be both a blessing and a curse. Thomas Greenspan, a psychologist and author of a recent paper on an antidote to perfectionism published in Psychology in the Schools, says perfectionism is more than pushing yourself to do your best to achieve a goal. It's a reflection of an inner self mired in anxiety. So when you look at perfectionism that way, you begin to see how perfectionism can work and be intertwined, if you will, with confidence, with self-esteem, with self-worth. And I realize that self-esteem and self-worth are supposed to be different things. They're supposed to be different. But again, they're so intertwined in our society to where, for most people, self-worth and self-esteem, it's a distinction without a difference. Continuing on with the article here from Perfectionism, and then we will jump into the article about confidence. Again, the definition from Thomas Greenspon, psychologist and author of a recent paper, An Antidote to Perfectionism, says perfectionism is more than pushing yourself to do your best to achieve a goal. It's a reflection of an inner self mired in anxiety. The article continues, in other words, perfectionism is born out of uneasiness, concern, and doubt rather than a simple basic want to do things well. And what's the psychology behind perfectionism? And why are some people such perfectionists? Well, there's several reasons why this personality trait is stronger in some than in others, and it's down to a certain psychological mindset. While some people take or leave mistakes as a lesson, perfectionists see them as personal flaws. Perfectionists will then mentally beat themselves up and feel that sense of failure, the same fear of failure that perfectionism stems from. Another source of perfectionism, and before I continue, are you starting to see how being a perfectionist is intertwined in there with low self-esteem and how it can be also tied directly into low self-worth? Again, for some people, when they don't do something perfectly, they see it as a personal flaw. They then beat themselves up, feeling as though they are a failure. Not they did something that did not work out. And there's, this different mindset. Everybody has different mindsets, but there are some people that, they buy into the, just think good things and only good things will happen. And there's always a silver lining to every cloud and rainbows and sunshines and kitty cats and unicorns. Well, to the perfectionist, that unicorn doesn't have a horn. That's not actually a unicorn. I'm now a failure because I did not think about a unicorn properly. It winds up, not going right for everybody. Stay tuned. There's more.
In 2115 New England, there are no borders, no states, and no regulations, yet never has a more peaceful and prosperous place existed. But Mr. Drake's security company has seen better days. Faced with the prospect of waning power, Mr. Drake intends to replace the anarchy of New England with a government. But at what cost? Will anybody care? And can anyone stop him? Anarchy in New England by Joe Jarvis is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
The FPP Peace Prize was created in 2009 with a mission to recognize a person or group that has, through deeds, words, and actions, worked to make the world a more peaceful place, where it shall be legal for anyone to do anything he wants, provided only that he not initiate or threaten violence against the person or legitimately owned property of another. Nominations are open each year until September 30th, with voting from October 1st until the first Tuesday of November. Vote now at peaceprize.xyz.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. We're talking about perfectionism, how it screws you up, how it's tied to self-confidence, and what you can do. Hopefully, it will get into the article of what you can do to boost your confidence. So again, for some people, being a perfectionist is a sense of wanting to be, I don't want to say good enough, but basically good enough, because for some perfectionists, again, the characteristics, they have to check things multiple times. They procrastinate until it's just the perfect time to start. and they're always the first person, or oftentimes the first person, to spot a mistake. Some people can make a mistake and take it as a lesson. Some perfectionists will then see the mistake as a personal flaw. I was not good enough to do fill in the blank. That means there is something wrong with me. The perfectionist of that sort will then beat themselves up, feeling as though they are a failure, not that they did something that did not work out. And for some people, they can easily distinguish between you are a failure and you did something that failed. Some perfectionists, they can't differentiate that. And that is not to say that there is something, quote unquote, wrong with them. It's just different mindsets, different ways of looking at things. And for the people that look at things that way of, they weren't perfect, so therefore something is wrong with them, they wind up, again, beating themselves up, and it's, a fear of failure. And I was getting lost between two paragraphs here. Again, their perfectionism comes from a fear of failure. For others, perfectionism is more an issue of ego. Many people want things to be perfect because they're in a mindset of caring what other people think of them, that they'll be judged negatively if something isn't up to a certain standard. Now, I'm sure there are some perfectionists who fit into both of these categories, to where they want approval from others in order to give approval to themselves. Continuing on, childhood experiences can also allow perfectionism to evolve in your personality, especially if you've learned from a parent or guardian that you somehow can't be lovable if you're not perfect. This transcends into your way of thinking throughout work and relationships into adulthood. And again, this is sort of the type that I was talking about that combines both the ego and the lesson, to where you want that outside validation in order to give yourself the internal validation of, oh, well, that person liked it, so it's okay that I am happy with what I did. And, again, that winds up creating this sort of, I don't want to say negative mindset, but it kind of is. And to where, well, I can't like things that I did if nobody else likes the things that I did, and I have to do them just perfect in order for somebody else to like them before I can be happy with what I created. And, it's all sort of intertwined for some. And the article says, and of course, the restricted rules during your education years can teach you at a young age that following rules is important and to your detriment if you're to break them in any way or to not live up to the rules. Now, there's definitely more here that I'll skip down to how to change the perfectionist mindset. Step 1 here, they say abandon the all or nothing mindset. A common mindset when it comes to perfectionism is either you want to do something well or not at all. But the problem is, or rather the problem with this, is in denying the importance of process. Achieving greatness comes from the experience and insights gained from this process, allowing you the chance to tune and apply those for future success. This inadvertently reduces the chance of failure overall, despite what the perfectionist mind may try hard to deny. Keep in mind the 80-20 and the 70% rule. Now, I'm aware of the 80-20 rule, but I'm not familiar here with the 70% rule. The 80-20 rule, as I have come to understand it, is that 80% of the work gets done by about 20% of the people. But I think they mean it in a slightly different context here. So let's jump in. It's sometimes easy to ignore the essence of something when it comes to perfectionism, but as long as the essence is apparent within whatever you're doing, it doesn't need to be 100% perfect. Just 70% is all it really needs for it to be great, and the fine-tuning can be done afterwards. This way you're seeing the end results much more clearly, helping to see potential issues. The 80-20 rule is a good one to keep in mind. Only 20% of your efforts amounts to 80% of the results. So that's a different take on the 80-20 rule, but kind of fits with how I've been told. Again, what I knew it as is 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. Here they're saying that 80% of the results is because of 20% of effort. Any more than this isn't going to make a huge difference. Plus, it gives you that leeway to tune up the details at a later date. Another step on changing the perfectionist mindset is to actively ask for positive feedback. And again, this sort of works back in with one of the earlier things to where feeding the ego, you need that outside validation. Sort out the must-haves from the good-to-haves, celebrate small wins, set realistic goals, and focus on the bigger picture. Now, when we come back, we will talk about confidence and how to build it from zero.
Are you sick of government lackeys who say you didn't build that? Are you tired of elitists who think you need a government permission slip for everything? Everything you do is an A to B conversation, and the government should see their way out of it. Create true free markets by adopting the BIPCOT No Government License. The BIPCOT No Gov license allows use or modification of any product, service, or software except by governments or government agents. Go to BIPCOT.org. That's Bravo, India, Papa, Charlie, Oscar, Tango.org.
In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Find A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty by Darryl W. Perry on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com.
Hi, this is Davi Barker from ShinyBadges.com, and you're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry. The Liberty Penguin, the wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And we're going to talk about confidence here in just a moment. But how would you like to be confident in knowing that you can get your hands on some precious metals? Well, if you want to do that, get your hands on some precious metals and be confident that what you're getting is what you think you're getting, then definitely touch base with Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. They've been around since 1977, helping people do just that. Buy and sell precious metals like gold and silver. Plus, don't forget, they've got platinum and palladium. And they're a Bitcoin preferred business, meaning they want you to pay with Bitcoin. They want you to do this so much that they've actually eliminated the minimum purchase amount for orders paid in Bitcoin. So pick up the phone and call Roberts & Roberts Brokerage for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760. Or just take a look online, rrbi.co. Yeah, you can order online as well, but there's just something about talking to a human being and saying, Hey, Tim, I want to get my hands on some of those silver maple leaves. I want to get my hands on some of that gold that you have. I want to get my hands on some of the platinum, some of the palladium, and I want to pay you in Bitcoin. 800-874-9760. Now, let's jump into the article about building self-confidence. Again, comes from lifehack.org. And as always, the link will be in the show notes where you can read it at your leisure. Article begins, Michael Edwards, better known as Eddie the Eagle, is a British skier whom no one believed in before he made it to the Olympics. Eddie was slightly overweight, extremely far-sighted, he wore thick glasses, and trained in second-hand equipment. At times, he even stayed in a Finnish mental hospital because he could not afford genuine accommodations. Many people came to doubt his ability as a skier. If he didn't have confidence in himself, he could have never endured all of this and never would have made it to the Olympics, which he did, and became internationally loved as a figurehead and emblem of the Olympic spirit. The author here says, when I think about all the great people like Eddie who achieved greatness through their confidence, I wonder where it came from. I don't think confidence came naturally to them. It certainly didn't come naturally to me. So where does it come from? The author here says, when I was a small child before attending school, I remember my friends and I seemed almost limitless in confidence. We lived fearlessly. Though all our lives were open to us, we never looked forward and worried. We had not collected any regrets. I remember nobody seemed more confident than anyone else, and nobody carried themselves as superior. All of this changed in school. In school, competition is entrenched. It didn't matter what we did or studied, whether we studied English, art, PE. Some naturally stuck out, scored better, and were rewarded for it. Our conduct at school even separated us. This, in turn, seemed to affect self-confidence. Author continues, I was never a straight-A student. My grades were good, but not great. I was never one of the kids rewarded for some high grade or performance and never had their levels of self-esteem. Confidence for me came later. In high school, I discovered my passion for technology. Loved writing code, still do. And each successful program I wrote, each line of effective code was rewarding to me in a way I never felt before. Each time something didn't work or when I came across a difficult bug to overcome, I was presented with an exciting challenge. I received no praise in school for it, no accolades, but that didn't matter. I was doing what I loved, and every time after solving a difficult coding problem, my confidence grew. Author here says, here I discovered something that changed my entire outlook on confidence and ability. Self-confidence can never be found outside. Again, self-confidence can never be found outside. Hence the term self-confidence. I threw that little part in there. That's not in the article. But again, article will be in the show notes. You can read it at your leisure. Story continues. He says, it's something that only comes from you. No matter how much you look or where you look, no matter how much praise you do or don't get, you will never find confidence unless it comes from within. Confidence came from working through difficulties, making myself work on challenging pieces. It didn't seem to matter if I succeeded or failed, but I've long known that even if you fail 100 times, you will succeed if you're able to keep trying. I only needed to keep pushing myself, and confidence grew as a result. When struggles are overcome, it feels good, and there's a great deal of satisfaction. From this satisfaction comes confidence. Perhaps you have an unhealthy lifestyle and losing weight, doing exercises, and going on diets are difficult for you. Perhaps you're shy. Delivering a talk in front of a large audience will then be something that's difficult for you. Or perhaps you're a perfectionist, and embracing a mistake will be difficult for you. Stay tuned. There's more.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.
When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. Liberty Lobby LLC is doing just that in New Hampshire, working hard to represent you, not some special interest group. You can help by going to libertylobby.info, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Visit libertylobby.info today to find out more.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Talking about self-confidence. And again, as always, the link will be in the show notes. You can read it at your leisure. Maybe you don't have a lot of self-confidence. And again, maybe you're shy or you're introverted, so talking to people, just approaching people at a bar or a gym or somewhere is difficult. Talking in front of a large audience is difficult. Maybe you're a perfectionist that we talked about in the first half or 2/3-ish of the show. Embracing mistakes is difficult. No matter what it might be, you probably felt proud, strong, and sure in your abilities once you overcame an obstacle. That is the true feeling of confidence earned through effort and experience. There will be setbacks and disappointments. There will be failures because many breakthroughs require trial and error. There will be criticisms because everyone is far from perfect at the very beginning. The author here, who apparently is the founder of this website, says, when I first started Lifehack, it took a long time to gain readers. It took me a while to get 100 visits. This was difficult for me because I had great ambitions for the site, and for a time it seemed doomed to fail. I received plenty of criticism. Some thought that the world didn't need another advice site. Others thought there was something wrong with the idea itself. It was hard for me not to listen to them and agree, but in the end, I believed in my dream and persisted. I tweaked the layout, reconsidered how the articles would be structured and written, made the site more user-friendly. The team grew with the hiring of some extremely dynamic and talented people, which with each determined effort, the site grew in popularity, and a few years later, we have now influenced millions. Pushing out of my comfort zone and getting past the most difficult challenges were the greatest factors in growing my confidence. Pushing through is tough. Not denying that. The author here continues. He says, they wouldn't be called challenges if it were otherwise. They would not be called challenges if they weren't challenging. But there's a quote by Churchill that I think about whenever I'm faced with new ones, a quote that I feel related to everything I've written above. Quote, if you're going through hell, keep going. Again, as always, link will be in the show notes. You can read it at your leisure. And don't forget, I answer your questions every Friday. Send those over, ama.fppradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.